Hello beautiful people, welcome to Mera Class. Daily Current Affairs. February 25, 2021. New IT Rules 2021. Why in news? Recently, the government has notified Information Technology, Intermediary Guidelines, and Digital Media Ethics Code, Rules 2021. These new rules broadly deal with social media and over-the-top OTT platforms. These rules have been framed in exercise of powers under Section 87(2) of the Information Technology (IT) Act 2000 and in supersession of the earlier Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines, Rules 2011. Key points. Background. 2018. The Supreme Court, SC, had observed that the Government of India may frame necessary guidelines to eliminate child pornography, rape and gang rape imageries, videos and sites in content hosting platforms and other applications. 2020. An ad hoc committee of the Rajya Sabha laid its report after studying the alarming issue of pornography on social media and its effect on children and society as a whole, and recommended for enabling identification of the first originator of such contents. The government brought video streaming over the top, OTT, platforms under the ambit of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. New guidelines for social media/intermediaries. Categories of social media intermediaries. Based on the number of users on the social media platform, intermediaries have been divided in two groups. Social media intermediaries. Significant social media intermediaries. Due diligence to be followed by intermediaries. In case due diligence is not followed by the intermediary, safe harbor provisions will not apply to them. The safe harbor provisions have been defined under Section 79 of the IT Act and protect social media intermediaries by giving them immunity from legal prosecution for any content posted on their platforms. Grievance redressal mechanism is mandatory. Intermediaries shall appoint a grievance officer to deal with complaints and share the name and contact details of such officers. Grievance officer shall acknowledge the complaint within 24 hours and resolve it within 15 days from its receipt. Ensuring online safety and dignity of users. Intermediaries shall remove or disable access within 24 hours of receipt of complaints of contents that exposes the private areas of individuals, show such individuals in full or partial nudity, or in sexual act, or is in the nature of impersonation, including morphed images, etc. Such a complaint can be filed either by the individual or by any other person on his or her behalf. Additional due diligence for the significant social media intermediaries. Appointments need to appoint Chief Compliance Officer, a nodal contact person, and a resident grievance officer, all of whom should be resident in India. Compliance report need to publish a monthly compliance report mentioning the details of complaints received and action taken on the complaints, as well as details of contents removed proactively. Enabling identity of the originator. Significant social media intermediaries providing services primarily in the nature of messaging shall enable identification of the first originator of the information. Required only for the purposes of prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution, or punishment of an offense related to sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, or public order. Or of incitement to an offense relating to the above, or in relation with rape, sexually explicit material, or child sexual abuse material punishable with imprisonment for a term of not less than 5 years. Removal of unlawful information. An intermediary upon receiving actual knowledge in the form of an order by a court, or being notified by the appropriate government, or its agencies through authorized officer should not host or publish any information, which is prohibited under any law in relation to the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, public order, friendly relations with foreign countries, etc. Rules for news publishers and OTT platforms and digital media. For OTT, Self-classification of content. The OTT platforms, called as the publishers of online curated content in the rules, would self-classify the content into 5 age-based categories: Universal, U/A7+, U/A13+, U/A16+, and A Adult. Parental lock. Platforms would be required to implement parental locks for content classified as U/A13+ or higher, and reliable age verification mechanisms for content classified as A. Display rating. Shall prominently display the classification rating specific to each content or program together with a content descriptor informing the user about the nature of the content and advising on viewer description, if applicable, at the beginning of every program, enabling the user to make an informed decision prior to watching the program. For publishers of news on digital media, they would be required to observe norms of journalistic conduct of the Press Council of India and the Program Code under the Cable Television Networks Regulation Act 1995, thereby providing a level playing field between the offline, print, TV, and digital media. Grievance redressal mechanism. A 3-level grievance redressal mechanism has been established under the rules with different levels of self-regulation. Level I, self-regulation by the publishers. Level 2, self-regulation by the self-regulating bodies of the publishers. Level 3, oversight mechanism. Self-regulation by the publisher. Publisher shall appoint a grievance redressal officer based in India, who shall be responsible for the redressal of grievances received by it. The officer shall take decision on every grievance received by it within 15 days. Self-regulatory body. There may be one or more self-regulatory bodies of publishers. Such a body shall be headed by a retired judge of the SC, a high court, or independent eminent person, and have not more than 6 members. Such a body will have to register with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. This body will oversee the adherence by the publisher to the Code of Ethics and address grievances that have not been resolved by the publisher within 15 days. Oversight mechanism. Ministry of Information and Broadcasting shall formulate an oversight mechanism. It shall publish a charter for self-regulating bodies, including codes of practices. It shall establish an interdepartmental committee for hearing grievances. Are you watching Mera Class right now? President's rule in Puducherry. Why in news? President's rule has been imposed in the Union Territory of Puducherry, on the recommendation of the Lieutenant Governor, after the established government lost power during a vote of confidence. The President was satisfied that a situation had arisen in which the administration of the Union Territory of Puducherry could not carry on in accordance with the provisions of the Government of Union Territories Act, 1963. The Government of Union Territories Act, 1963 enacted by the Parliament in accordance with the provisions of Article 239A. Key points. Administration of Union Territories. Article 239 to 242 under Part 8 of the Indian Constitution deals with the administration of Union Territories. Every Union Territory is administered by the President acting through an administrator appointed by him. An administrator of a Union Territory is an agent of the President and not head of state like a governor. The President can specify the designation of an administrator. It may be Lieutenant Governor or Chief Commissioner or Administrator. The Union Territories of Puducherry, in 1963, Delhi, in 1992, and Jammu and Kashmir, in 2019, are provided with a legislative assembly and a council of ministers headed by a chief minister. But the establishment of such institutions in the Union Territories does not diminish the supreme control of the President and Parliament over them. The Parliament can make laws on any subject of the 3 lists, including the state list, for the Union Territories. Provision in case of failure of constitutional machinery, as per the 1963 Act. If the President, on receipt of a report from the administrator of the Union Territory, or otherwise, is satisfied that a situation has arisen in which the administration of the Union Territory cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of this Act, or that for the proper administration of the Union Territory it is necessary or expedient so to do. The President may, by order, suspend the operation of all or any of the provisions of this Act for such period as he thinks fit, and make such incidental and consequential provisions as may appear to him to be necessary or expedient for administering the Union Territory in accordance with the provisions of Article 239. President's rule in a state. Meaning. President's rule implies the suspension of a state government and the imposition of direct rule of the center. It is also known as state emergency or constitutional emergency. Constitutional provisions. The President's rule is imposed through the invocation of Article 356 of the Constitution by the President on the advice of the Union Council of Ministers. Under Article 356, President's rule is imposed if the President, upon receipt of the report from the Governor of the state, or otherwise, is satisfied that a situation has arisen in which the government of the state cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Parliamentary approval and duration. A proclamation imposing President's rule must be approved by both the Houses of Parliament within 2 months from the date of its issue. The approval takes place through simple majority in either House, that is, a majority of the members of the House present and voting. Initially valid for 6 months, the President's rule can be extended for a maximum period of 3 years with the approval of the Parliament, every 6 months. Consequences of President's rule. The state governor, on behalf of the President, carries on the state administration with the help of the Chief Secretary of the state, or the advisors appointed by the President. The President can declare that the powers of the state legislature are to be exercised by the Parliament. The President either suspends or dissolves the state legislative assembly. Revocation. A proclamation of President's rule may be revoked by the President at any time by a subsequent proclamation. Such a proclamation does not require parliamentary approval. This happens in case the leader of a party produces letters of support from a majority of members of the Assembly and stakes his claim to form a government. Recommendations/judgments on President's rule. The Administrative Reforms Commission, 1968, recommended that the report of the Governor regarding the President's rule has to be objective, and also the Governor should exercise his own judgment in this regard. The Vajrayana Committee, 1971, recommended the deletion of Articles 356 and 357 from the Constitution of India. The necessary provisions for safeguards against arbitrary action of the ruling party, at the center under Article 356, should be incorporated in the Constitution. The Sarkaria Commission, 1988, recommended that Article 356 should be used in very rare cases, when it becomes unavoidable to restore the breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state. S.R. Bommai Judgment, 1994. The Supreme Court enlisted the situations where the exercise of power under Article 356 could be proper. One such situation is that of hum assembly, i.e. where after general elections to the assembly, no party secures a majority. Justice V. Shalaya Commission, 2002, recommended that Article 356 must be used sparingly, and only as a remedy of the last resort after exhausting all actions under Articles 256, 257, and 355. The Punchy Commission, 2007, recommended that these Articles 355 and 356 be amended. It sought to protect the interests of the states by trying to curb their misuse by the center. Mera Class please subs. FATF retains Pakistan in Greylist. Why in news? The Financial Action Task Force, FATF, has decided to retain Pakistan on the Greylist till the next review of its performance on its recommendations during the June plenary session. Key points. Background. During the October 2020 plenary, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Pakistan was given an extension for full compliance with the 27-point action plan till February 2021. It had then not fully complied with 6 of the 27 directives. The FATF had issued the 27-point action plan after placing Pakistan on the Grey List in June 2018. The action plan pertains to curbing money laundering and terror financing. About FATF acknowledged Pakistan's significant progress in combating terrorism, however it was still to fully comply with 3 of the 27-point action plan. The 3 points pertain to effective steps in terms of financial sanctions and penalties against the terror funding infrastructure and the entities involved. After assessing the measures taken during the June 2021 session, the FATF would verify the implementation and test the sustainability of reforms undertaken by Pakistan to review its inclusion or exclusion on the Grey List. Significance. In Pakistan's case, the FATF has taken cognizance of the inaction against several banned organizations involved in raising funds for terror activities, and those linked to global terrorists like Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar and Lashkar-e-Taiba's Hafiz Saeed, and its operations chief Zakiur Rahman Lakhvi. On several occasions, India has also raised the involvement of elements within Pakistan in a number of terror cases, including the 26/11 Mumbai and Pulwama attacks. Perpetual containment of Pakistan on the Grey List of FATF would further pressurize Pakistan to take adequate measures to prevent such terrorist attacks on India from its soil. Financial Action Task Force. About. It is an intergovernmental body established in 1989 during the G7 summit in Paris. The FATF assesses the strength of a country's anti-money laundering and anti-terror financing frameworks, however it does not go by individual cases. Objectives. To set standards and promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures for combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and other related threats to the integrity of the international financial system. Headquarters. Its secretariat is located at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, headquarters in Paris. Member countries. The FATF currently has 39 members including 2 regional organizations, the European Commission and Gulf Cooperation Council. India is a member of the FATF. Lists under FATF. Grey List. Countries that are considered safe haven for supporting terror funding and money laundering are put in the FATF Grey List. This inclusion serves as a warning to the country that it may enter the blacklist. Blacklist. Countries known as non-cooperative countries or territories, NCCTs, are put in the blacklist. These countries support terror funding and money laundering activities. The FATF revises the blacklist regularly, adding or deleting entries. Sessions. The FATF plenary is the decision-making body of the FATF. It meets 3 times per year. PLI scheme for IT hardware and pharmaceuticals. Why in news? Recently, the Union Cabinet has cleared production-linked incentive, PLI, schemes for pharmaceuticals and IT hardware, including laptops, which would cost the government as much as Rs. 22,350 crore. Earlier, the government had announced the PLI scheme for medical devices, mobile phones, and specified active pharmaceutical ingredients, with a proposed outlay of Rs. 51,311 crore. Key points. PLI scheme. It aims to give companies incentives on incremental sales from products manufactured in domestic units. It invites foreign companies to set units in India, however, it also aims to encourage local companies to set up or expand existing manufacturing units. IT hardware sector. About. The scheme, worth Rs. 7350 crore, will offer 1 to 4% cash incentives on net incremental sales over base year 2019 to 20 for IT products manufactured in India. The target segments include laptops, tablets, all-in-one PCs and servers. Duration, 4 years. Benefits. India will be well positioned as a global hub for electronic system design and manufacturing, ESDM, on account of integration with global value chains, thereby becoming a destination for IT hardware exports. Employment generation potential of over 1,80,000, direct and indirect, over 4 years. Provide impetus to domestic value addition for IT hardware, which is expected to rise to 20 to 25% by 2025. Pharmaceutical sector. About the Rs. 6,940 crore PLI scheme implemented in 2020 focuses on the critical bulk drugs, whereas this scheme is likely to focus on other types of bulk drugs. It intends to give incentives between 2020 to 21 and 2028 to 29, 9 years. Drug manufacturers applying for the scheme will have to be registered in India and will be placed into one of 3 categories based on their global manufacturing revenue, GMR. Categories of drugs targeted by the scheme. First category. It includes biopharmaceuticals, complex generics, patented and orphan drugs, often expensive, for which India relies a lot on multinational drug makers. Second category. It comprises active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, key starting materials, KSMs, and drug intermediates, DIs. Third category. It includes other critical repurposed, autoimmune, anti-cancer, anti-diabetic, antiretroviral, anti-infective, and cardiovascular drugs, as well as in vitro diagnostic devices and drugs not manufactured in India. Incentives. For first and second category. 10% of incremental sales value for the first 4 year of the scheme, followed by 8% for the 5th year, and 6% for the 6th year of production under the scheme. For third category. 5% of incremental sales value for the first 4 years, 4% for the 5th year, and 3% for the 6th year. Benefits of PLI in pharmaceuticals. Reduced dependency on China. India's capabilities in APIs have reduced over the years, mostly due to cheaper alternatives from China. The pharmaceutical industry here is currently dependent on the bordering country for nearly 70% of the bulk drugs it imports. Enhance exports. The Indian pharmaceutical industry is the 3rd largest globally in terms of the volume term of production and is worth $40 billion in value. The country contributes 3.5% of total drugs and medicines exported globally. State of Environment Report 2021, CSE. Why in news? Recently, the State of Environment Report 2021 was released by the Center for Science and Environment, CSE. CSE is a public interest research and advocacy organization based in New Delhi. It researches into, lobbies for and communicates the urgency of development that is both sustainable and equitable. Key points. Findings. Pandemic generation. India is all set to usher in a pandemic generation, with 375 million children, from newborns to 14-year-olds, likely to suffer long-lasting impacts, ranging from being underweight, stunting, low height for age, and increased child mortality, to losses in education and work productivity. Increased school dropouts. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, over 500 million children were forced out of school globally, and India accounted for more than half of them. Rise in extreme poverty. COVID-19 has made the world's poor poorer. Over 115 million additional people might get pushed into extreme poverty by the pandemic, and most of them live in South Asia. Pollution levels worsened. India's air, water and land have become more polluted between 2009 and 2018. Of 88 major industrial clusters in the country, according to the Central Pollution Control Board, 35 showed overall environmental degradation, 33 pointed to worsening air quality, 45 had more polluted water, and in 17, land pollution became worse. Tirupur in Maharashtra emerged as the most polluted cluster. Regarding sustainable development rankings, India ranked 117 among 192 nations in terms of sustainable development, and was now behind all South Asian nations except Pakistan. States' performance in Sustainable Development Goals. Best performing states: Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana. Worst performers: Bihar, Jharkhand, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya and Uttar Pradesh. Other similar reports. UN report on the impact of COVID-19 on children. Report on winter pollution, CSE. Sitanadi Udanti Tiger Reserve, Chhattisgarh. YN News. Thousands of tribals living in villages located in the core areas of Sitanadi Udanti Tiger Reserve are protesting and demanding the recognition of their community forest resource rights. Community Forest Resource, CFR, rights are given under the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers, Recognition of Forest Rights, Act, 2006, FRA. The tiger reserves are constituted on a core/buffer strategy. The core areas have the legal status of a national park, or a sanctuary, whereas the buffer or peripheral areas are a mix of forest and non-forest land, managed as a multiple-use area. Key points. Provisions of the Forest Rights Act, FRA. About the Forest Rights Act, FRA, 2006 recognizes and vests the forest rights and occupation in forest land and forest-dwelling scheduled tribes, FDST, and other traditional forest dwellers, OTFD, who have been residing in such forests for generations. It strengthens the conservation regime of the forests while ensuring livelihood and food security of the FDST and OTFD. The Gram Sabha is the authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual forest rights, IFR, or community forest rights, CFR, or both that may be given to FDST and OTFD. Individual rights encompasses rights of self-cultivation and habitation. Community rights, such as grazing, fishing and access to water bodies in forests, habitat rights for particularly vulnerable tribal groups, PVTGs, right to protect, regenerate, or conserve or manage any community forest resource for sustainable use, etc. Community forest resource rights. These are rights of Adivasi and OTFDs over customary common forest land within the traditional or customary boundaries of the village, or seasonal use of landscape in the case of pastoral communities. These can be recognized over any forest land including reserved forests, protected forests, and protected areas such as sanctuaries and national park. About Sitanadi Udanti Tiger Reserve. Establishment. Sitanadi Udanti Tiger Reserve came into existence in the year 2008-09, are two separate reserves, Udanti and Sitanadi Wildlife Sanctuaries, combined together. Location. It is located in the Gariband district, Chhattisgarh. Ecological diversity. It contains various types of forest crop mixed with sow forest. Asiatic wild buffalo is the key endangered species found in the core area. Apart from the tiger, other endangered and rare species are Indian wolf, leopard, sloth bear and mouse deer. Rivers. Sitanadi River originates in the middle of Sitanadi Wildlife Sanctuary. Udanti River flows from the west to east covering a major part of the Udanti Wildlife Sanctuary. Other tiger reserves in Chhattisgarh. Akanakmar Tiger Reserve. Indravati Tiger Reserve. Airline mapping of ocean floor. YN News. The Indian National Centre for Ocean Information Services, INCOIS, is planning to conduct airline mapping of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep to get a better picture of the ocean floor. Lakshadweep Islands are located in the Arabian Sea. These are coral islands located off the coast of Kerala. The Andaman and the Nicobar Islands lie to the southeast of the Indian mainland in the Bay of Bengal. Key points. About ICOIS. INCOIS is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, MOS. It is located in Hyderabad and was established in 1999. It is a unit of the Earth System Science Organization, ESSO, New Delhi. The ESSO operates as an executive arm of the Ministry of Earth Sciences, MOS, for its policies and programs. Mandate of INCOIS, to provide the best possible ocean information and advisory services to society, industry, government agencies, and the scientific community through sustained ocean observations and constant improvement through systematic and focused research. Recent initiative. The INCOIS is planning to take the help of the National Remote Sensing Center, NRSC, to conduct bathymetric study of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep. NRSC, it is one of the primary centers of Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, Department of Space, DOS. Bathymetry. It is the study of the beds or floors of water bodies, including the ocean, rivers, streams, and lakes. The term bathymetry originally referred to the ocean's depth relative to sea level, although it has come to mean submarine topography, or the depths and shapes of underwater terrain. NRSC has already done a similar high-resolution topographic airborne laser terrain mapping, ALTM, for entire coastal areas of the country. ALTM is an active remote sensing technology that employs light detection and ranging, LiDAR, to measure topography at high spatial resolution over large areas. ALTM pulses a laser to measure the range between an airborne platform and the Earth's surface at many thousands of times per second. Using a rotating mirror or other scanning mechanism inside the laser transmitter, the laser pulses can be made to sweep through an angle, tracing out a line or other patterns on the reflecting surface. The scientists are in the process of integrating the data for a 3D multi-hazard mapping of both the east and west coastline for a more precise picture of the ocean floor. Significance. Such a study has become imperative in view of the recent tsunamis warning. Recently, at Indonesian coasts, where more than the quake-related high waves, damage was due to landslides that had under the seabeds causing sudden wave surge leading to much damage without giving sufficient time to alert people. Other initiatives. It had also identified gaps across the coast of Andhra Pradesh and Odisha for installing more tide gauges for better monitoring of the sea and more accurate prediction of impending disasters like cyclones. The INCOIS scientists, in association with their counterparts in the Chennai-based National Institute of Ocean Technology, NIOT, and in United States independent scientific agency, Massachusetts-based Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, WHOI, have been mining the data recorded by a unique flux buoy retrieved from the Bay of Bengal off the Calcutta coast. The buoy was dropped off into the sea to monitor the temperatures, pressures, salinity, radiation, and geochemical changes at various depths in a high-resolution scale, compared to other buoys in the seas. Similar global initiative. Seabed 2030 is a collaborative project between the Nippon Foundation of Japan and the General Bathymetric Chart of the Oceans, GEBCO. The project aims to bring together all available bathymetric data to produce the definitive map of the world ocean floor by 2030 and make it available to all. Manatha Padmanabhan. Why in news? Recently, the Prime Minister paid tributes to Manatha Padmanabhan on his Punyatithi, death anniversary. Key points. Birth. He was born on January 2, 1878 in Perunna, Kottayam district of Kerala. About. He was an Indian social reformer and freedom fighter from the southwestern state of Kerala. Sardar K. M. Panikkar called him Madan Mohan Malviya of Kerala. He began his career as a teacher in 1893 in a government primary school. In 1905 he changed his profession and started practicing law in the magistrates' courts. Political and social contribution. He took part in the Vicom, 1924, and Guruvayur, 1931, temple entry satyagrahas, and the anti-untouchability agitations. Vaikom Satyagraha was a movement in Travancore, modern-day Kerala, for temple entry of the depressed classes. It took place near the Shiva temple at Vaikom, Kottayam district, Kerala during 1924-25. Vaikom was at that time a part of the princely state of Travancore. Guruvayur Satyagraha was a satyagraha, non-violent protest, to allow entry for untouchables into the Guruvayur temple in present Thrissur district, which was then part of Panani Taluk of Malabar district, now part of Kerala. He is regarded as the reformer and moral guide of the members of Nair community. He inspired the Nair community members to end practicing bad and orthodox customs. He led the Nairs to demand temple entry for all castes, and to put an end to untouchability. In 1914 he established the Nair Service Society. He became a member of the Indian National Congress in 1946, and took part in the agitation against Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer's administration in Travancore. He was arrested for the Indian Freedom Movement on June 14, 1947. In 1949, Padmanabhan became a member of the Travancore Legislative Assembly. In 1964 he was instrumental in the formation of Kerala Congress, the first regional party in India. Awards and recognition. He received Padma Bhushan in 1966. He was honored with the title Bharata Kesari by the President of India. Death. He died on February 25, 1970 at the age of 92. Mannam Memorial, or Samadhi, is located at NSS headquarters Puducherry, which is a municipal town in Kottayam district, Kerala. Vijayanagara King Krishnadeva Why in News? The first ever epigraphical reference, an inscription, to the date of death of Vijayanagara King Krishnadeva has been discovered at Honanahalli in Tumkuru district, Karnataka. Normally, the death of kings was not recorded in the inscriptions, and this was one of those rare records. Key points. Findings. As per the inscription, Krishnadeva, one of the greatest emperors of India who ruled from the south, died on October 17, 1529, Sunday. Incidentally, this day was marked by a lunar eclipse. The inscription is engraved on a slab kept on the north side of the Gopala Krishna temple at Honanahalli in Tumkuru district. The inscription also registers the gift of village Honanahalli in Tumkuru for conducting worship to the god Viraprasanna Hanumantha of Tumkuru. The inscription is written in Kannada. Krishnadeva. He was the ruler of the Tuluva dynasty of Vijayanagara Empire, 1509-29 AD. His rule was characterized by expansion and consolidation. He is credited with building some fine temples and adding impressive gopurams to many important South Indian temples. He also founded a suburban township near Vijayanagar called Nagalapuram after his mother. He composed a work on statecraft in Telugu known as the Amuktamallayada. Vijayanagara Empire. Vijayanagara, or City of Victory, was the name of both a city and an empire. The empire was founded in the 14th century, 1336 AD, by Harihara and Bukka of the Sangama dynasty. They made Hampi the capital city. In 1986, Hampi was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. It stretched from the river Krishna in the north to the extreme south of the peninsula. Vijayanagara Empire was ruled by four important dynasties, and they are Sangama, Saluva, Tuluva, Aravadu. Ancient Buddhist monastery found in Jharkhand. Why in News? The Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, has unearthed a Buddhist monastery, believed to be at least 900 years old, buried under a mound in a village near Joljulpahar of Sitagari Hills in Jharkhand. Earlier an ancient Buddhist shrine, buried under a similar mound was found, close to this site. Key points. Artifacts unearthed. For statues of deity Tara in Vared Mudra, gesture of hand showing dispensing of boons. Nagari script on Tara statue. Nagari was a previous version of Devanagari script, and the words indicate Buddhist religious affiliation. 6 statues of the Buddha in Bhumisparsha Mudra, gesture of hand showing 5 fingers of right hand towards the earth symbolizing the Buddha's enlightenment. A sculpture which appears to be that of Shaivite deity Maheshwari, with a coiled crown and chakra indicating cultural assimilation in the area. Significance of the findings. The findings are significant since the monastery is on the old route to Varanasi, 10 kilometers from Sarnath, where the Buddha gave his first sermon. The presence of statues of deity Tara shows possible proliferation of Vajrayana form of Buddhism in this region. Vajrayana. Vajrayana means the vehicle of the thunderbolt, also known as Tantric Buddhism. This Buddhist school developed in India around 900 CE. It is grounded on esoteric elements and a very complex set of rituals compared with the rest of the Buddhist schools. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe Mera Class.